Hey there, and welcome to the behind the scenes of the Rustic Songbird podcast. I'm Lydia Walker from rusticsongbird.com, and I'm taking you behind the scenes of an interview on the podcast. I hope you enjoy this video, but before we get started, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you enjoy topics like this, we have new podcast episodes coming out every single week, and the behind the scenes will be here on this YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy this show, consider becoming a patron and supporting Rustic Songbird on Patreon. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/rusticsongbird. All right, let's get into today's show. My guest on the show today is Bryan Boliver. He is a music producer, and he's also the podcast host of the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters podcast. So we're going to talk today about recording demos. So if you are a songwriter and you are thinking about recording a good quality demo of your song and maybe working with a producer, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Is Bryan's experience working with artists and songwriters, especially in Christian music, and just give you some inspiration, some advice today on how you can take that next step. So Bryan, welcome to the podcast.
Lydia, thank you so much for having me on. It is an honor to be here, and I've been listening to the show for a little while now and love the content and the stories that I'm hearing through your podcast. So, truthfully, I know everyone says that, but I really feel honored to be here today and hanging out.
Well, thank you so much for making the time and for talking about this. I know a lot of time we're creating music as musicians, but I love to talk about music and talk about creating music. And so that's what the podcast is here for, to just kind of nerd out about it together. And I've seen a big need in the songwriter community, especially in Nashville, where I'm around Nashville songwriters who want to get really good recordings of their songs and have a demo that they could maybe pitch to an artist or, have a good demo before they do a full production, maybe something acoustic, but just capturing that the sound and the feel of the song. And so I'd like to kind of talk about your story and how you got into producing first, and then go into more of the nitty gritty of your experience working with songwriters and some advice for somebody who might be like just not knowing how to get started or wondering about working with a producer, co-producing even. So I'm excited to dive into all of that today. But tell me how you got started in music production.
Yeah, just like kind of like what you said, I started production because it was a songwriting tool. I had all these song ideas, and back in the day, I started in GarageBand about 12 years ago. And so I would just have these ideas and I would just start recording them because it was like magic to me. It's like I had this song on my mind or in my phone or whatever, and then I could start building something that turned into something more like quickly, and it was exciting, that process. So over the years, just doing that more and more and realizing like, wow, you can really kind of take your basic idea and flesh it out to something that people might actually want to, hear and be impacted by. And that kind of comes through the production process. Because like you said, like a lot of people write songs and you write a ton of songs and that's great, but nowadays there's so many 40,000 uploads a day or something ridiculous like that to Spotify. Like there's so many songs. So I feel a great way to be able to get your songs out and heard and taken more seriously is sounding good, because at the end of the day, a song is a song. I know that's a Nashville thing. Song is king for sure. But it's also like, what's the packaging of the song? If you're gonna stack up your incredible song in a voice memo to somebody's incredible sounding demo, naturally I think our ear is going to be tuned in to be like, hey, I think maybe that demo might be a better song just because it's more fleshed out. There's less, because as a producer, one thing that I've really thought about a lot is like in my mind when I hear a work tape or I hear an idea, like my brain kind of does that. But that's my production side. Like not everyone does that. Some people may hear a song for just what it is, but like, oh, this is a good song, but like there's not a lot to it. So that's where the demo phasing and the production phase comes in, is bringing more kind of like meat to the bones, or even more like clothes to the body. Like it's that last layer of like, you take that core thing that's great, the song, and you just make it as good as you can before you present it to people.
Yeah. So you saw the need for that as a songwriter first, which is a different perspective because you do care about the song and how that song is delivered. But also, I think a lot of us creative people have that where we do hear other instruments in our head, or we hear, well, it should be, kind of like it should be in this style or this tempo. And we kind of have an idea in our head, but to be able to actually play the instruments, put the tracks down, mix it to where it needs to be. I mean, that takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of time, building up the gear is one thing, but also what you do with the gear and just knowing, like tuning your ear, but also like making sure what's trending, what's current, what's kind of the bar, like what is the standard for what it needs to be, and how much time you're going to put into it. So there's a lot that goes into the production side, but seeing it as a songwriter, you kind of have that baseline of saying, okay, it's going to start with a song. What does this song need? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I say that all the time. I know it might sound like a little foo-foo, but like it's my role as a producer is not to make the song what I feel like I want it to be. My role is to make the song be what it is. I feel like a song, even at its simplest form, it has a message behind it, especially if we're writing, Christian songs or worship songs, whatever they might be, or not, even secular music. Like the song has, I feel it's a living thing. So it's my role to just make it what it is, and that's not forcing like, hey, I think we should do a crazy electric guitar solo here. Like that's not what the song needs. So that all of that kind of points to the shaping of it. I do a lot of referencing where if I'm working with an artist and they're like, hey, I'm kind of hearing this vibe, then that will help narrow my lane. Because as a
Yeah.
songwriter, I'm sort of the same way as a songwriter too. Like when you can just do anything, it's like it's too big. It freaks me out. But like when I
Yeah.
have a lane, like this is what we're writing for, this artist or this, project or whatever, like the more narrow the field, I don't know, I feel like I can thrive in that because then
Hmm.
it's like I kind of know maybe what the artist is wanting or what they're feeling. So then the more information I have will help me, deliver that end result that's like meets their vision and meets the thing that gets them super excited about that song. Because yeah,
Yeah, well, that's a really good point as we're talking about this, like having some song references. It's not that you're copying those, but that can really give you some inspiration as to what instruments or what style you're going for. And so you think even like three song references of different artists that might be similar, or like I've heard of people making a playlist, kind of like a mood playlist for a song or for an album, and say it's kind of like this and kind of like this, and then you make something new and fresh out of it.
totally, and it's whatever combination suits, the artist. Because some might be like, "Hey, I love, this song, everything about it. Can we kind of feel this out?" To, but then another could be like, "Hey, I love the drums in this song. Hey, I love the vocals in this song." So yeah, just whatever the artist or person having the song produced is feeling like, definitely. And that's the thing too. Like I was very resistant to referencing things in the beginning because I'd
Because
be
you don't
like,
want to copy.
yeah, I don't want to be a copy. I want to be
Yeah.
completely original. But like we
Hmm.
know from even the Bible, which is way older than any of us, like there's nothing new under the sun. So like
Right.
really we're influenced and we're the sum of everything that we've ever heard or been influenced by, whether we know it or not. Like
Hmm.
so owning the idea that like, yeah, we're referencing something that moves us to hopefully move others through our unique voicing. Like I think that's totally okay. And honestly, like really encourage it. Like in fact, when I'm starting to work with somebody, I'll have them send me the reference that they want to work with on like that's before I even get going. Like not
Hmm.
this requirement, but like it just makes the process easier because it gives us all a general direction to start from.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because if you know what artists will sound similar or have a certain idea, it can kind of save you time experimenting with things that are just way off. If you know something specific, then you can, maybe EQ it a certain way or use a certain guitar pedal for that sound. Or like if you know what beat range it's going to be, then you're not guessing from slow to fast. You're like, oh, well, if it's between 130 and 135, we can do that. Let's feel it out. And like you said, like having some kind of bar to go by and just say, let's make it in this style, but make it our own. And that unique factor is what's going to really make it stand out from the others.
Totally. And even, even if we tried our best to copy something exactly as
It
it
would
was,
still be different.
it would still be different. So like, and we don't do that,
Yeah.
but like even, if we're leading worship and we're using tracks from another artist, like it still comes off different just because we're all uniquely made. So like
Hmm.
leaning on the skills of other people that we look up to, I think is just smart and it helps. Yeah, it just really helps give direction to the project.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people in our listener audience are songwriters who, maybe sing at their church, or they've maybe done coffee houses or open mics, or, have done some live shows, but haven't done much recording. Maybe they have recorded, but didn't have a good experience, or they're looking to record, but just not sure what to expect. So what advice would you give to somebody who either hasn't recorded with a producer before or is looking into like doing songwriter demos and having that capture of their songs? What's a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, like the internet is our best friend because you can really, I mean, most producers who are active, like they're posting their work, So not every producer's for everybody, too. That's the thing. Like, and I guess my thought would be work with the person, reach out to the person that you resonate with and
Hmm.
talk to them, in the same, no different than a co-writing relationship. Like you're going to you can't be like perfect. You can be best friends with somebody and write terrible songs together. There's no like, exact formula. So
Yeah.
my thing would be like, go online, search out producers or whatever, or people that you might know. Cause chances are if you're, a songwriter, some people who make tracks or demos if you don't do it yourself anyways. So like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a personality click, really like, and again, it could be a working relationship where it's not like we can hang out for hours and hours to make songs together. It's not that, but every personality you're going to find a click with. So like, and with the way the internet is, like I said, like you can easily kind of start seeking people out. Everyone's got a website, everyone's got a Instagram and a Facebook. Like check out their stuff and just try to catch the vibe and pray into it,
Hmm.
because if God wants you to work with that person, like I feel like it becomes obvious. And then that will kind of just work through the entire process because that's the thing too is something that I've worked with when I've worked with other people is like you're kind of with them in this pretty vulnerable state. Like as songwriters, we know that like our songs are our babies and
Yeah.
like every one of them is special and we love them. Even if they're terrible, we don't really care. It's just we love them. So like when you're entering into that process with somebody, like you kind of have to trust them. Especially in a creative way. It's not like you're buying a T-shirt. It doesn't matter, if you don't have to be like best friends with the person at the mall if you're buying a T-shirt. But like if you're
Hmm.
working on a song, like this is your blood, sweat, and tears. Like, and you're ultimately probably going to release this or pitch this to somebody that it's you. It's an extension of you. So finding someone that you resonate with, I think, is really crucial in just making the best representation of your song.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's really wise to ask other friends that are songwriters, other artists, and say, who do you enjoy working with? Who
Yeah.
have you worked with before? Who do you know in this area? Like, I've gotten messages from people that say, hey, I know you're in Nashville. So, what producers do you know in the area for this style? And that's great to seek out people that are in the area that you can get to. I know you're in Florida, right? So, but you can do some things on, online. So, you wouldn't even have to be in the studio. It's just the
Yeah.
amazing thing about the internet.
Yep.
And also, people go back and forth to Nashville or to LA or to New York or wherever they want to record. But then also, I think it's good to like seek out somebody in the style that you want to do because they're already good at that style and not trying to make it something that they're not good at. Like, look at the liner notes of albums that you enjoy. Like, what are your favorite artists? What are their producers? Who is producing them? Could you work with them or maybe even get a recommendation from them if it's, way out of budget or something for someone in that specific style? So I think just knowing that can really help people with the next step of finding producers and contacting them, not be afraid to like ask questions.
Yeah, because you are interviewing them essentially to take on your project, and I would say that's another great tool of the internet is like 99% of the work that we do is remote, you know, and nowadays to get a simple setup, I mean, all you need is a USB mic and headphones and it's some sort of free DAW software, and like you can connect with people, producers anywhere who can take your basic tracks as long as they're clean, they're not
Hmm.
overdriven or whatever. Like you can fix anything in studio, and not that you want to, it's not all about fixing, it's about making the song great. But like I said, like 99% of the people we work with is remote, so it doesn't matter.
That's
Location
awesome.
isn't limiting, but at the
Yeah.
same time, if you're in Music City in Nashville, like there is incredible talent all around you. So yeah, just ask a friend, and they will definitely probably know 10 gifted producers that you can reach out to.
Yeah, and it's exciting to hear that you do so much remote because if people are asking, from other places that are not in the vicinity of recording studios, like you can do it online and, send your track to be mixed or to have instruments added to that and to work back and forth. So let's talk about that a little bit. You've
Yeah.
been doing some co-producing with songwriters to get a really good quality demo. of
Mhm.
their original songs. So what does that process look like? Like what files do they send to you? What advice do you give to them about having that clean capture so that you can then mix and add instruments to it? What's that process like?
Yeah, so I'm a document guy. I'm an Enneagram 1, so like I'm all about like organization, which is funny because like creative side and organizational side sometimes meet in a crazy way, but that's just me. So with that, like I have sheets of documents to send to people like, "Hey, this is how we get clean vocals." And so it's all like because that's the thing with being online is communication's so key
Yeah.
because I mean it's in general it is, but especially when like if you don't have, if you're not up to date, it's easy to be like, do they even care, or are they still around? So, like I'm just very like active when it comes to communication with artists. But yeah, really, like there's two ways I do it. One, if somebody is either in GarageBand or Logic, like they send me their actual entire session, and I have a
Mhm.
whole thing of like how those files can be delivered to me. But if they're in another DAW, it's just as simple as bouncing the stems and sending me the files. And a lot in most DAWs, or if not all, you can bounce MIDI
Mhm.
stuff out. So if there's any MIDI instrumentation, they can send me those, and I can add in my own sounds and patches if they want that. But also, I have people that like they love their piano sound, so I don't mess with it. I just add it in there, build upon that. So there's all different phases, but typically, yeah, someone will either send me their session or their files. I will add it in, or I will open the session on my end. And then based on the reference, I use a reference in the same way as I do if it's a full production from scratch. We just sort of go into that, and I just lean on the reference, the tracks they gave me, and then my own, inspiration or feel on the track, and just build it up. And that could be anything from tuning and editing vocals to reprogramming drums to playing more guitar parts or whatever whatever the case may be. But like
Mhm.
I said before, like the song I feel like wants to be a certain thing, and I just try to like facilitate that process, as strange as that may sound. But so it just whatever the song needs to what I feel brings it to the next level is kind of what we do. And it's really simple. And I know a lot of times too, songwriters, they're writing a lot of songs, so it's like the production stuff may seem fatiguing. It's like, I don't know, that sounds like I hate that maybe, but maybe not. But with that, like the thing I love about doing things the way we do things remotely is like really we take the fatigue out of it for them because I nerd out on the buttons and all that stuff and the creative
Mhm.
process. So like really it's like they send me their thing and then magically like this full song is done. They don't have to do the work. Of course, with that, then the revision process goes where we bounce it back and forth until we dial it in. But like it's not that tedious thing where maybe like I said, they may not be a huge fan of that process, but
Mhm.
like we handle it to where it's just here it is, and let's start bouncing back ideas instead of having to kind of, because I've been in the studios before where you just kind of sit there and watch the engineers work. And like I know some people love hanging out in studios too, but for me I'm just like I just want to hear the end product, like, and then go
Mhm.
from there. So like that's something that I try to carry with what we do is just, yeah, the taking the magical aspect of like the song from this idea to like this fully fleshed thing, and then it's just all based on what they send me as we kind of go from there.
I love it. Thank you for walking through that whole process too. And some of it might seem complicated to a newbie, like talking about DAWs and talking about stems and sending stuff. People are like, woo, over my head, maybe. But I love that you do have documents that step by step walk you through, like, this is how to get a clean recording of your guitar. Here's
Yep.
how to get a clean vocal. And then also showing them, like, here's how you can send those individual files, which are the stems you were talking about. Like,
Mhm.
here's the guitar track, here's the vocal track. And I also think it's encouraging. When I've talked to people that haven't been in studios very much, I think you hear like that final vocal and you think somebody just walks in the studio and sings it perfectly, or like like you go in, you have one chance, but that's not how it works. Like you might go in there and sing that vocal 3 times, or do multiple tracks and just have different versions to choose from. And then
Yep.
like you said, the production part where you're tuning the vocals and you're like sliding the guitar parts around if they're not right with the click track. And
Mhm.
there's things like that that you can make it sound perfect for the end result,
Yep.
but there are hours of work that goes into a 3-minute song,
Yeah.
and so I think people might expect to go in and like have that pressure of go in and do it right and sing everything in tune, and you don't have to really do that anymore. You can just kind of do your best and like have different takes to choose from. And I think that's a very freeing thing to know, like you can go back and you can change it if you don't like the sound of it.
Yeah, I always tell people like I mean, within reason, like we want to try, our best to sing on pitch and on time, of course. And naturally, we would because we love our songs, so we want to sound the best we can, you know. But like, I am way more interested in having an emotionally driven performance than a perfectly like technically sound performance, if that makes sense.
Yep.
There's of course a blend, but like I can technically fix basically anything as long as it's
Hmm.
not overdriven. But I
Yeah.
can't fix emotion, you know what I mean? So like go in there and sing your song with the passion that you felt when you're writing it
Hmm.
and then send it and then let the technical stuff just kind of happen in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so helpful because it is a lot to learn to produce your own stuff, and you can definitely do trial and error to
Yeah.
to go back and forth and see what works, see what you like. But another thing with working with studios is it can get expensive to record a lot of songs if you're writing regularly,
Yeah.
and so this is a great way to get a good quality capture of
Mhm.
that song that's good enough to pitch to an artist that might want to cut it on their album, or good enough to send out an acoustic version, like you said, maybe release it yourself as an example of what you can do as an artist, and then work up to a full production later. So it's a good way to just get something out there that's good quality.
And there's something else too that I'm actually working on something right now, not right now, but now. Uh,
Like this week.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That is three songwriters from, let's see, Michigan and Texas. They sent me their work tape, and then I am going to do an acoustic demo recording of it. Like I'm actually singing on this one. They want me to sing on it so that
Hmm.
they can pitch it. So like
Cool.
that's another thing that we kind of do is like the demo side where like because there might be people listening that like you're not an actual artist or you're insecure about that kind of side of it. You just want to write music and then be able to pitch it or get it out there. So
Hmm.
that's an option too. And there's a lot of people that do that kind of thing where like you can just send your work tape and then get it produced up. I've done that actually quite a bit personally where I've taken somebody's song and then I'll literally perform the vocal and the whole bit. And same thing, bounce it back and forth, go with a reference, all the same process. It's just
Yeah.
you don't have to necessarily be the singer to get your music out there.
Yes, that's such a good point. And a work tape could be as simple as voice memos on your phone, or like you said, start in GarageBand, or like a free software to just get it recorded. And then
Oh,
you can use that as a reference and redo it, with fancier mics and software and all of that.
yep.
But if someone is not a singer necessarily, or doesn't want to sing on that song, maybe they wrote it for a guy to sing and it doesn't really work in their voice, or maybe if someone is a lyricist and has lyrics and a melody, but doesn't play an instrument. I've seen that a lot where people don't play guitar or piano or have something to put it down. So they'll just sing the melody into a voice memo,
Yep.
send it to the producer, and then they take that and just kind of polish it, have a studio singer come in and do it. And then they've got that to pitch to somebody.
Exactly. There was one particular song I did where the lady sent me her just singing into her phone, and that was it. And then she sent me like a reference track. So I built like the chord progressions around it, all collaborative and stuff. But
Yeah.
like, it literally there was no musical accompaniment whatsoever, and I don't even know if it was all in the same key. It was just like dialing that in. But like,
Yeah.
it ended up turning great, and she ended up pitching that song and entering into contests and everything. So like, that is definitely a viable resource.
That's awesome. I love talking about the process here because you never know what song is going to really take off. And just having some kind of uh, good quality MP3 to pitch to a contest or to pitch to, even movies. I've been looking into that with sync licensing lately, and you can record your own songs and pitch it out. And it's amazing to me what people can do with instrumental stuff, with acoustic stuff, even weird sounds. I mean, it does not have to be radio quality
Right.
to put it out there and to be used in a movie or like a TV show, or there's so much opportunity, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that doesn't necessarily have to be CCM radio. You don't have to have your songs up there with the Chris Tomlins of the world from the beginning. He worked up to that, and that's what we all have to do. We have to start from zero, and starting with something simple like an acoustic track or like these songwriter demos, kind of get your feet wet into the production world, and then you could build up to like a full band production or bringing in more people and getting fancy later, is what I like to say, is like
Yeah.
start simple.
Yeah, because once that session exists, your simple acoustic demo, like all you have to do is start building on that. Like it's already to a click, it's already in a DAW. Like you have the files. So yeah, exactly what you said. Start simple. Don't get all overwhelmed. Like, oh man, if my song doesn't sound like "Great Are You, Lord," then I might as well not even write it. Like that's that. But that, a lot of people get hung up on that kind of
Yeah, they
thing.
do though. Yeah.
Like I'll never be as good as that person, the imposter syndrome. So like I'm not even gonna try. Like that's not honoring what God's given us to utilize. Like we have our own voice, and it may never be at that magnitude. Success is a subjective thing. Like what success for you could just be people singing your song in a church. And some success might be a billboard charting whatever, and some maybe singing their song in a nursing home or for some kid. Like whatever
Hmm.
it looks like God's given us those gifts to use and share. And so like we kind of I feel like we have to do it. That's the same burden that we have to need to write. Like ultimately, like if we don't share, like what good is a light under a bowl, the Mark 5
Hmm.
thing. Like we're called to share. So like how do we do that? Well, there's lots of ways. You can have people sing your songs and do demos for you. You can start to learn simple production yourself and send the tracks off or session off to someone to help you. Or you could start from, like we do a lot of things too, where we'll take just that work tape idea. And this is the thing that we do the most is we'll take a song from the work tape with a reference and we'll build the entire thing together from scratch, you know? So like basically any part of the process or skill level or capacity an artist or songwriter has to want to get their songs out, like there's people who can help them realize that vision fully.
Hmm. I love that. And I think as we're going into a new year and trying to plan for next year and like, what do you want to do as a songwriter? I think it's good to have that awareness of like, what are my goals and what do I want to go for? Because that's going to have something to measure towards what is success. Is it successful to release your own song? Is it
Yeah.
successful to have it pitched? Even if it hasn't been cut yet, the first step is to pitch it to someone so they can hear it and get that attention to see if they would want to use it. And so you kind of have to backtrack from whatever your goal is to, okay, how can I get it to that person that makes the decision? Or who can I reach out to who's already in my network and ask questions and learn how this process works? And so that's how you find the opportunities, is by asking those questions of yourself and really getting honest with, what do I want out of this? Is it to be the artist? Is it to pitch it to somebody else to sing? Is it to be on the radio? Like, what is your goal? I had somebody tell me the other day, I just want to win a trophy for something. I'm like, cool, done. Let's
Yeah.
like pick it out. Like, let's find a trophy somewhere and like nominate you. Like, if you just want to win something, like go do that. And if that makes you, feel successful, then go for it. I was laughing because I've never won a trophy at this point, and that hasn't been my goal, but I said, well, if that's your goal, let's go get it. And so that's the kind of mindset we need to have as musicians, is like, you can always write another song.
Hmm.
So even if that song doesn't go as far as you want or doesn't do what you want, you've learned so much through that process, and you can make another song. So you can always keep writing, keep learning, keep improving, and you never know what song is going to take off too. So
Right.
just having something out there, just getting comfortable working with producers, getting your songs out there, getting feedback, even from like, once you have the song out, then you can get feedback on what people like and do more of that, to build your audience and see what resonates with people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if and two, I think there's power in being realistic. Idealistic is great too, and I definitely am an idealistic person. So like if you think, okay, I really need to write a song with Chris Tomlin for, my career to take off. Well, for one, that's not impossible. Anything is possible. But like where does that start? Okay, well, who's Tomlin's publisher or who's his label and where are they located? And can I get a meeting with that intern or that person? Or like you said, kind of reverse engineer it. But the thing is,
Yeah.
you got to have a song that sounds good in your pocket to even have the meeting. So like
Hmm.
you're not going to go from 0 to 1,000. We can't even handle that. This thing that God showed me lately is like you know, the slow incline is the way to go
Yeah.
because you're building strength and stamina. And like the peaks and valleys are great, they're exciting, but like it's a lot harder to climb straight up and it hurts a lot more to fall straight down. So just that steady pace is
Hmm.
the thing that gets us to where ultimately we want to go, I think, and knowing where the heck we're heading. And not that it's going to not change and evolve along the way, of course, but we have to set like measurable goals to even know what we're working towards, or else we're just like running about chaotically.
Absolutely. So we need to have some kind of direction, some kind of plan, and it can always tweak and change and, like you said, evolve over time
Yeah,
because we don't know what all the variables will be, but we just have to start.
you have to start.
So important. You have to do something, even if it doesn't sound good. Like, even if it's not your best work, like, it's towards learning and getting better. And so, like,
Yeah.
think about your next 100 songs, write 2 a week. And in a year, you could have 100 songs, and maybe 10 of those would be great to do a full production album. Instead of thinking like, oh, I need 10 really good songs. And if this isn't going to be the best song, then I'm not even going to start writing it. That's not how the process works. It's like, think about those 100 songs and go for that, and pick the best ones. So I think all of that is really good advice. And I want to tell people about your podcast that you started. So let's talk about why you started the podcast, who it's for, and kind of what your vision is for your show.
Awesome. Yeah, we just launched it. We actually, episode 15 came out this morning. So
I
it's called,
listened to it with Hollis. It was great.
man, Hollis, what a great story. That guy's awesome.
It was cool.
Yeah, so it's called the Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters Podcast. It started, actually, it didn't start for a long time out of the imposter syndrome, me feeling like, okay, who am I to even do that? Because there's so many great people that do that already. I'm just going to add to the noise, and I'm, silly anyways. But then one morning, about 2 months ago, honestly, it's pretty new. God just woke me up at like 4 a.m. and he's like, "You're gonna start." And I was like, "Okay, God, what does that look like?" And he was just like, "I called you to serve Christian indie artists and songwriters. You know a bunch of them, so just start sharing their stories with people." So that's exactly what we do. Is I just interview a lot of people that either I've worked with or my friends that I know, like in the community, and then also I do. I'm really big on, because I release music also as an artist, and through the over 2 years doing that, just kind of trying to figure out Spotify and the streaming world and all that. Like, I've learned a couple things. So there's some solo episodes of me just kind of like throwing out my wisdom or whatever, any kind of information I have. Because I feel like, if God's positioned me to be able to do anything in this world, like, we're called to serve and give that away,
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it, but the main thing, the flagship thing are the interviews. And these are Christian artists and songwriters from all over the place. They're every story, and I feel like, I mentioned Chris Tomlin a bunch on this interview, like, if you search like worship or whatever podcast, you're going to find, 30 interviews with Tomlin, and that's awesome. And like, his story is great and valid and inspiring, but I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe don't get their stories out there because they're not like a known megastar or whatever that even means, So like, it's my idea that, like, if we will overcome by the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony, like, all of these stories are equally valuable as with anyone
Mm-hmm.
else's. So that's our thing, is just taking these people that I know and just sharing their stories. And so far, it's been incredible to see, and like, starting to get feedback about impact of like, wow, like, that really, like, people that I don't know, and I would probably never know if it wasn't for this. So that's how I feel like that's why God inspired us to do this, is because it's not about me, it's not about, our name or anything. It's just about these stories, and ultimately, like, what God's doing through these people, and sharing that to encourage others to realize, like, you can do it and you should do it. So here's how people have done it. So take that and run with it.
Mm-hmm. And even hearing someone's story that's a few steps ahead, somebody that has some independent music out there, or somebody
Yeah.
that is traveling and singing at churches, or writing songs with other people. Just hearing about that process a few steps ahead can really help someone who you know needs to see that reality. Like, what does that look like as a singer songwriter? Or what if I'm a worship leader at my church and kind of writing songs here and there, or recording my first stuff? And seeing people that are closer to it seems more realistic than the people that have been at it a long time and have a lot of songs out
Yep.
there and on the charts. And so I think it's really important to highlight just real stories of real people that are doing the types of things that you want to do, and also getting that like spiritual encouragement and advice from people that are in that lane, like they're in the zone, they're doing this every day,
Yeah.
and just hearing how they think through the process. So I think it's really, really valuable, and I want to send people over to your podcast. So since you're listening to a podcast right now, go on over and we'll link to it as well. But if you just search in your podcast app, it's called Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters. And you'll see it come up with a logo of a guitar on there. And that's Bryan's podcast. So, a
Thank you.
Christian Indie Artists and Songwriters. And Bryan, tell us how people can connect with you on Instagram, hear some of your production, and also connect with you if they're interested in doing these songwriter co producing demos that we've been talking about.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. Excited for people to jump in on the podcast too. And, like I said, I love being here. So the best way to, we kind of live on Instagram and Facebook. My name is, it's funny growing up, like my name's Bryan Boliver. Like that's terrible, but it's great because it's unique. So we have a bryanboliver.com, our company's called Bryan Boliver Music. So if you go to the website, that has not only like our most recent production work and everything there, co-production and full production work, but also, we generate a lot of content to try to help people along their journey. So there's a bunch of free stuff there. Also, there's links to the podcast on the website, and there's just a bunch of stuff over there to check out. And then on Instagram, just at Bryan Boliver, Facebook, Bryan Boliver, just BRYANBOLIVER. And yeah, just search my unique name and it'll show up somewhere.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and giving some tips and advice. I think it's really helpful, and somebody's going to get excited and contact you and make some awesome music. And I just love it. I'm glad to be connected with you and to see what all you're doing, especially with the new podcast. So keep up the great work, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to connecting with anybody. So yeah, I'm excited, and thanks again for letting me be here.
Cool. Thanks.
Real quick, I want to say a big thank you for watching this behind the episode here on the YouTube channel, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for more topics like this coming soon. We have new episodes of the podcast every single week, and share the behind the scenes right here on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy this podcast and want to show your support, consider joining our Patreon community to support us on a monthly basis. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/Rustic Songbird. That's patreon.com/Rustic Songbird to become a patron today. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.